3, 2, 1, action. I am so excited today. Ian just said to me, "You're always excited." I'm not always excited. I'm exceptionally excited today because I've got Ian Cameron. He is a brilliant, quite amazing clinician, practitioner. He's got a very successful business. And Ian, welcome this morning. Thank you for meeting me.
Thanks, Garry. Good to be here.
I've got this philosophy that I only really interview outstanding people that have done something with their lives. And you are certainly one of them, very, very successful. And the aim of the game here is that someone will watch this, an optometrist, a dispensing optician, someone in optics, and they'll be better off at the end of the 30 minutes than when they began. Something inspirational, something they'll pick up a golden nugget. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right.
Let's hope so.
What's a day in the life of Ian Cameron look like?
Good question. Today, I tend to try and work from home on a Wednesday for some of the day, although I have to go into the practice today. But I try and take Wednesday, take the wee one to school, and then try and get some focus time. It's hard in the busyness at practice to
How
get time
how
to
old
really...
is the wee one?
The wee one's 8, so just
Still
walk her
cute.
up to school. That's
Still
not a big
cute
deal.
at 8.
Still cute, yeah, definitely.
So do you have another child? Just
I got 2 others. Yeah, I got a 12 and a 14 above that. So they keep themselves self-sufficient in the mornings. But
the Cameron household is busy because running a business and having a family, it's really tricky. I find it, certainly in the early days, it's tricky. Am I correct in saying you're 2 generations in?
My grandfather was in optics and my dad, and so I'm third. The older one, actually, the 14-year-old, he's talking about doing optometry. He's picked some subjects that might let him do optometry, so that'd be quite exciting. But he's either that or F1 engineering, and I think maybe F1's winning.
He could do both,
but we'll see.
The boy could do both.
Yeah, why not?
He could go for that. So you're gonna do the school run, which has its beautiful. I love doing the school run. So you come back. It's a Wednesday today, so you're gonna try and just lock the door and say, "Right, I'm gonna get on with some work."
Yeah, I try and get a couple of the mornings, kind of my best period. So I try and take that morning session to really get some project work done. So something that's big and gnarly that needs like time when I can just really give it. Because when you're in practice, there's phone calls, there's people asking, whatever going on, and it's hard to. I find it hard to get into.
Can you give us a window into a chunky example that you'd think of? There's so many people out there, opticians, optometrists, they haven't got a direct debit system. Like I think, wow. Or they're thinking about Spring's offer. What is a chunky thing to you?
Yeah, they're good examples, I guess. It's anything that's going to take the business forward. So you can spend so much time just treading water, running a business. That can occupy you all the time that you give it. And you can just find yourself just staying afloat. And that's fine. That's good. But if you want to develop that business and start that direct debit plan, take on a new service, myopia management, whatever it is that you want to try and do, you need time to think that through.
This really worries It really worries me that when people are just now thinking of doing myopia control, I think to myself, where have you been for the last 5 years? And people like you and I love innovation, love being the first to do things. And that can be scary for clinicians because they don't want to make a mistake. Like
Definitely.
Don't want to make a mistake. So what does today's planning look like? Would you give us an insight?
What am I doing today? Good question. I haven't actually even looked at my to-do list for today. I think I'm going to try and focus a bit on conversion. I've got a bit of interest in that at the moment. So I'm trying to think about how can I take that forward a little bit?
Can I offer you some ideas on conversion?
Yeah, I love it.
People don't really look at collection. Collection's a time that you can convert that spare pair. It's only a marginal gain. And the staff will say, "Oh, I don't know about collection," but really mentioning, have they got a spare pair? That's the last time you're going to see them for maybe a year. I don't know how you do. How do you tell people their glasses are ready?
It depends on the situation, so it depends on the context of that particular patient. But in general, we would text people and say they're ready for collection, please make an appointment, or we'd have made an appointment at fitting. So sometimes we use that way.
Something unusual happened the other day. I thought, I'm going to do the checking because that gives me an insight into the practice. So I did the check-in and I phoned this patient. She had this, they weren't wild, but they were really nice frames. And I phoned her up. She was 65 something. And I said, your glasses look lovely. They look wonderful. And she said, oh, I was having second thoughts. I said, no need. Like, they look really good. And she said, oh, I'm quite excited now. So I think people over 50 really like that phone call before the text. Under 30, they don't care. So again, just marginal gains, just these little tweaks. Now, for the audience, there's a guy called Gavin Rebello, and he said, what we're going to do, we're going to get together the very best practitioners in the country. And I was very lucky to be North London. You took the whole of Scotland. And we met once a quarter, I think it was, and we called ourselves the elite opticians. So you're definitely up there.
Well, I mean, Gary, you love a bit of exaggeration. I mean, like it's all very well, like you saying you're the best in North London, me saying I'm the best in Scotland, but that's just us blowing hot air. I think it was a chance to get like-minded people together, and I think that was probably the key thing. Not so much saying that these are necessarily the best or whatever, but just that these are guys who think in the same way about business and would benefit from spending time with one another and being open about what's going on in practice, the difficulties that you're having, because in our own separate ways, we were all forging forward on different paths.
In different
and there was
ways.
a lot of chance to learn from each other, even though we're doing very different things. My practice, your practice looks very different, but we can learn from each other, definitely. And that was the value of that group.
A level-headed look at that. So I look at that with tinted rose glasses. So I look at
everything with
being around
glasses,
the very best people. So you've done your chunky piece of work, and now it needs to get implemented, I suppose. What's the way that you communicate with your staff that, hey, there's something new coming down the road?
Oh, there's a whole series of things really on that. It depends on the nature of it. So we try and be as open as possible about future plans, because I think it helps bring people with you as you're thinking about these things. So once a quarter, maybe 4 times a year, I do something that we call State of the Nation, where I just say to people, this is what's going on in the practice at the moment. I show them the financials. This is how we're doing. Show them the profit and loss. Say this is where we are. We're going well. We're not going so well on this. This is where costs are. Just bringing them into that a little bit in a simplified manner.
And I think that's so important to share with your. So I go into practices now. My life is I get to go to 50 opticians up and down the country and look at what they're doing. They hide the figures from the staff. I think please share it with them. There's nothing worse than saying having to lower your hours or make you redundant because we're not making the money.
Exactly. That should never come as a surprise. The only thing we don't share is salary information, individual salary information, but I'll show everybody everything else and say, look, this is the reality of it. Because it used to be that, you would get to the year end and then you'd look at the books and then you say, oh, can we do a bonus? And then you'd be like, oh, yes or no. And the staff would have no idea what was coming. Has it been a good year? Has it not? They don't know. So I think bringing them in early, that's important. And then that's true of plans as well. So we talk about where we are financially, and then I spend the next bit talking about what is coming up this year. What am I thinking about in the background? So I've been thinking about conversion for a while. I haven't done anything on it, but I'm telling them, look, I'm thinking about this. That'll be coming later in the year. We're starting some new clinics. That's coming on later in the year. So just sort of updating people with where the practice is going, trying to inspire them a wee bit, get them a bit excited about the direction of things.
Now, here's the funny thing about conversion. When it's done well, you don't even have to think about it. It just happens. Essilor spent millions and millions on three-way handover. Do you do that there?
Yeah, sure.
You do that? So you're now feeling so inspired. Now your staff inspired. So now you're going to go into practice this afternoon. What does that look like? Do things change when you walk through the door? The boss is here.
No, I've worked pretty hard. I've worked pretty hard not to make it be like that. So the place isn't dependent on me being there to run smoothly. I definitely provide leadership and direction and all that sort of thing and strategy. And I have some useful place there, I'm sure, but it's not dependent on me. If I go under a bus, the practice keeps going. If I take a 2-week holiday, the practice keeps going. People know what they've got to do and everything's well managed. So I'm not critical to its everyday operation. But I think I probably am critical to its future direction and future shaping. That's what I'm bringing. But the actual operational day-to-day stuff, it does fine without me.
This is the thing about exceptional people. They don't realize how good they are. Where you are is in the top 1%. Or most business owners, practice owners, if they walked out today, it wouldn't last 3 months. You are in a very strong position. Is there any tips that you can give people that are listening, think, I would love that? And it comes with empowerment.
Yeah.
Like, if you empower your staff to make decisions without you, they're going to make a mistake. But for me, it would be empowerment. Sometimes when I went on
Hmm.
holiday, they did so much better than when I was there. And I was really proud of that. Ian, have you got
Yeah.
some tips for that?
Yeah, I think in my particular case, I guess I'm incredibly privileged to have grown up and inherited or bought a practice from my dad, which was incredibly good and a very good foundation. I've been able to
Mm,
take it forward in its own way, but I'm building on the shoulders of giants there. So my dad's a bit of a big man when it comes to optometry, and he built a great practice with a great reputation. So I've inherited that, and that gives me a massive leg up. So I think when I talk about my journey, it's difficult to replicate unless you've got a dad who's done what my dad did for
See,
me.
but
So,
let's just say your son does take over from you.
right,
His practice is going to look so different from his grandfather's, from yours.
sure.
So you have had a big hand in look, operationally finance. The fact that people will come in and talk about your dad still to this day is such a good legacy work, but you have taken it on.
Yeah, definitely. You have to move it forward, and again, that was kind of baked into it. The practice was always moving forward, even under my dad, and so he's very happy with the direction I've taken it. He's not hanging around saying, "Oh, don't do that, don't do that." He's like, "Just go for it." And I think that ethos is what then drives what you're talking about. Having an ethos that's like, "Yeah, let's go for it. Let's try something new," and empowering staff, as you say, to do that themselves. And then I think at a personal level, it's giving yourself time. If you're working 5, 6 clinical days in the practice, you will never develop your practice. You've got to take time out, and that's going to cost you because you're the big breadwinner in the practice. You're making the money. I get that. Being in the test room, I make more. My conversion's better than the other optoms because I'm the business owner. It's always like that. But I have to take myself out of the test room in order to give myself time to think about a direct debit system, to think about how to train people in conversion, to think about setting up a new service. If you don't take time for that, so the single biggest thing I did was never work, well, very early on in my career, not work full clinical day, 5 clinical days or 6 clinical days.
That's a
Never
good.
did it. So I started at 4.5 and it's gradually gone down, but I've always taken a half to be like, I'm going to get some stuff done there on the business. And that's been
The thing that
instrumental
I
to
sometimes
bring it
see
forward.
is startups that they go and locum on their day off, and I think, well, that's not good. Like you should
No.
have enough money to be able to sustain yourself, but that day rather than go somewhere else. I don't know your view on that, but that's a tricky one. The other thing that I would love your view on, and is this unfair? They say in optics the best thing is your staff stay. Like my receptionist that started with me on day one stayed for 22 years. But they also say the worst thing of optics is your staff stay and they get too comfortable. Are you like, do you believe in that? Number one, and two, how is your conflict resolution when someone just doesn't want to do something that you're asking them to do? How does that work in your world?
I like the phrase, I don't know who coined it, it wasn't me, but I say it quite a lot, is that, people say, what if you train your staff and they leave? And the response is, but what if you don't train them and they stay? Right. So you simply must train people. You simply must develop people.
Mm,
And you've got to accept there's a level of attrition there
mm,
that, people, the life circumstances, they move cities, whatever it is, like even if you're provide them the best job ever, their mum and dad get ill and they need to go back home or whatever it is, people have to move and you're going to lose people no matter how good your retention is. So I think you just have to accept that and accept that there's going to be a level of churn in your business, but you don't let that stop you training people or taking people on. So there's a mindset that just has to occur all the time.
and I
And you
and I
apply that
get
to yourself, you apply it to
and I
staff.
get I'm always learning. Every day I learn something new. And when it's optics as well, that gives me an extra bonus. And that from the top down. If you're learning, your staff are learning, it's not becoming stale. Do you cross train your staff so everyone can do an adjustment and everyone can book an appointment? Some practice
No,
prefer
no,
people
we're
to
too
be.
big for that. We're too big for that, really. So we're, in Cam Op, I've got a bunch of other practices that I'm involved with, but my main practice, Cameron Optometry, is what we 25, 27 staff. It's not possible to have everybody doing everything at that level, or you can do it, but it's incredibly inefficient, and you
Mm.
need people to specialize. So the DOs do the DO work, the front of house do the front of house work, the optoms do the optom work, the admin team do the admin work, and that makes the whole thing efficient
And I can
and
only, I've
successful, I
been to
think.
your practice. I can only imagine it runs like clockwork because something happened a few days ago where I was at a practice and something came in at the wrong RX. I said, it's not a problem, but is it a system error? Does it keep repeating itself? And I can only imagine that your system errors have been ironed out 1,000 times. Is that a
Yeah,
strong
yeah, we've been doing
management,
it a long time.
strong
Yeah, that's
manager
right.
there?
So yeah, we've got a great team, and that's why that's why I don't have to be there all the time and to make the thing run, because the team are excellent. But it all takes time. Like,
Hmm.
again, this is coming back to the kind of privilege that I inherit a very stable, functioning, good quality business. It's easy to continue to develop that. Um, so it's a different circumstance. You can look at this practice, but it's hard to replicate unless you've got all the history of that practice. But yeah, over time, it's been going 50 years. We've ironed out a lot of that sort of stuff. And where there's not a system, we put a system in. Where there's not a process, we put a process in. But they can always be improved.
Ian, you are so humble because what you're saying is again in the 1% that you're keeping your eye on the rudder. You know, if you set off from Southampton to go to America and you just left it float, you'd end up in South Africa. You have to constantly look at your practice, systems, operations, finance, marketing. Marketing, you and I probably will disagree on some things. Operations will agree 100%. Finance, absolutely. Marketing is where I think that we sometimes disagree. Like you would be like, never sponsor a football team. Never do that because it's a waste of time.
No, 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 no. It's not as simple as that.
All right, go on.
It's
Let's go
practice
into this.
dependent, right?
Yeah.
It's practice dependent. So for Cameron Optometry, that doesn't make sense. We're not a local practice in that sense. We're a big referral center, really. And so sponsoring a local football team, we don't have a local football team like that. We're in the city centre. There's not a locale. Other practices, that makes total sense. So
I'd
yeah,
love to dig
it's
into
practice
that.
dependent.
I think if you're watching this and you support you sponsor a local football team and their children, I don't know, they're 10 years old and you sponsor their kit. The kicker, if you just do that, you will get very little return on investment. If you go to a match, speak to the other parents, say to the coach, I will do this, but I expect every single child and family member to come for an eye test with me afterwards. That slight difference makes all the difference. I think it's the way it's implemented sometimes. And like, we are going to, I don't think we're going to waste time on marketing, but can you give us some tips on how you are marketing the business? Some of the big returns that you think, oh, this is so worth it.
It's all small percentages, I think, with marketing. So it's no one thing. There is no magic bullet for marketing, like do this and you'll get 1 million new patients. It's a combination of always on marketing. So like recall, marketing to existing patient base, offering them other services, collection appointments, reviews, social media stuff, posts, blogs, dealing with local schools. It's all of that combined. And then I think the main aspect of it is do an excellent job. And if you do an excellent job consistently year after year,
I agree.
People will stay with you.
I agree.
That's the best thing you can do.
I totally agree. I think when you're collecting the contact lenses or glasses and the person's absolutely beaming, patients loving you, they're going to go and tell 10 others if they've had a great experience. The other day, do you allow dogs in your practice, Ian?
Yeah.
There was this dog, and I'm not even a dog owner, and it looked thirsty. So I just got a tray and I gave it some water. And the patient was so happy. She was like beyond belief. Now that's not in the standard operating procedure. Like you've got to be a little bit empathetic to see that the dog, its tongue was hanging out. I'm not even are you a dog owner?
No.
No, but I could see it was thirsty, so I just gave. And I think having staff that empathetic and really care about others is a really big deal. Is
Hmm.
such a big deal. How
And the
how
way you develop that is by being empathetic and caring to your staff. Like
yeah.
if you create a culture of empathy and care internally, that then creates a culture of empathy and care for patients walking in. So the culture that you create internally is the culture that your patients will walk into. So if you want a culture of warmth and friendliness, then you've got to create that internally. If you want a culture of professionalism and trust, you've got to create that internally first, and then other patients can be brought into it.
Is it putting you on the spot to say what is the culture of your practice? If you could say, look, this is how I want it. This is how I want people to walk in and feel. Have you got that in a couple of sentences?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different ways of slicing that cake. I think how do you want patients to feel is actually quite a good way of asking that question. So we want patients to feel liked, we want patients to feel competent, and we want patients to feel significant. These are some of
Wow.
the words that we would use. They're not the only ones, but patients want to feel like you actually like them being there and they're not inconveniencing you by asking you questions, or they want to feel like this is important, and then they want to feel significant. That's the sort of third one I said, but significant is important. This is a once in a 2 year or once in a year thing for them. Obviously it's 10 times, 15 times a day for you as an optometrist, but for them it's a massive life event, and they need to feel that you understand the significance of that to them. It's routine for you, it's massive for them. So make it feel like it's significant to you. And then competent. Nobody likes to be made to feel foolish. Like when you come in a hospital and you don't know where to go, you feel a bit awkward and it's unpleasant. You're like, oh, which corridor is it? Oh man, which ward is it? How do I get to that ward? And you just feel like a fool. And that is a horrible feeling. And we don't want that. So we want people to know where to go, to feel comfortable, to know how to do the pre-screening tests competently, just all that sort of stuff. And these are just creating an experience. All those things together create an experience that people
And
enjoy.
it needs to be repeated over and over again. I don't know if you remember from when we used to meet quarterly. I had this commandments, the 10 optical commandments, and one of them was to mirror the patient. So if they said the word bifocal, even though it was a varifocal, you don't make them feel silly about it. Or they phone up and
Exactly.
say eye exam, you repeat the word eye exam. You don't say, oh, it's actually called a sight test. You just mirror your patients to make them feel great. I love that.
Correct.
I hope that
Correct.
so far, if you've been watching this and you're enjoying it, you've got a comment, make it down below, because this is how to run a real practice. This is where you want to be in 3 generations or 2 generations. Today, if I needed an eye exam and I was in Scotland, I would come to you. You are the best. You run the best. And I know
Thank
that
you.
sounds hard, but I get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. I get to see practices. You
There's
go
a
in
lot of
there.
great practices in Scotland. I wouldn't be so sure about that,
Oh,
but there's a
you're
lot of
so
great practices in
humble.
Scotland.
You're so humble. So the real juice of where I felt that this interview was going to go, that it's already excelled my expectations already. So where the real juice was the new innovations in optics, because you and we're not afraid of looking at new things, or not afraid of spending some money on something that might work or might not work. Where are your things that you're excited and that are working right now? So I I go into practice and I said, what are you doing for dry eye? They said, we sell drops. I'm like, and then that is it. There's nothing else behind that. What are your like Ian's top 5 really cool things that possibly isn't in your everyday practice?
I don't know that there's a load of stuff that other people
Here
aren't
we go. Well,
thinking
let's
about.
try us. Let's have a look.
All right. Okay. Well, I think for us at Camel, the main thing is specialist clinics, right? That is what is really making the difference for us at the moment.
Hmm.
So, and it's taking those clinics as far as you can take them. So when you think about dry eye, what is the furthest you can take dry eye? That's where you need to be aiming that clinic. So the various light therapies, IPLs, cyclosporin, weird IP drops.
So you're not associated with any companies right now. You're not, like, no one's giving you money. Which IPL machine have you got?
We've got the Espansione one that comes through Topcon. It's good. Like it.
You're happy with that? Thank you for
Just
that
upgraded
recommendation.
it actually to
Any advice? Any advice you hear on this show? We're not liable. We're just we're independent.
In fact,
we want to hear what other people.
I'm selling my old one, Gary, because we've just upgraded to the new Espansione one.
What was your old?
Also does the AMD. It was the Espansione one, but it was just the dry eye one, and now we're doing an AMD clinic. So the light therapy for AMD, photobiomodulation, and actually the new machine does both.
Wow. So
I've got an old one. If you want one second hand, come and speak to me. It's got loads of life left in it.
There you go. Contact Ian. So dry eye, not much we can do with wet, but dry eye and red light therapies is really exciting. I would suggest more than just giving Mackie Shield and saying eat some green leaves.
Leafy greens.
There's more to it than that. Again, this is exceptional. GPs will be referring to you because not many people do that.
Yeah, I don't know if GPs will be that familiar with it, but yeah, I think it will create its own little network, and people with AMD, they're very highly motivated, part of groups, especially where there's no treatment, like for dry AMD at the moment, no real treatment. So the word is going to get out that we're offering this, and that's going to grow itself pretty quickly, like the dry eye clinic has done. Again, it's poorly covered by the NHS. People need the service. We provide the service, and it pays for itself, and it works well. So same for myopia, be another thing. We're big at doing a lot of that.
Again, can I ask what,
in these things
with myopia control? I was very lucky in my pre-reg year when 1,000 years ago, I had this Australian optom, and she was prescribing plus 050s to minus ones, and everyone thought she was crazy. But she had a special interest. I've been around controlling myopia for many years. What is the lens that is your favorite for myopia control?
Well, I would be prescribing a plus 050 for a minus one, that's for sure.
Well, she was just experimenting. She was experimenting. She was being Gary, I tell you, that 8-year-old is already a minus one. They're going to be a minus 6 one day. She was out doing things differently back then. And she was just trying things. She was Australian. She didn't care. She was like, I'm going to just try this. See if I can make it stable. Yeah. So what lens do you sell for controlling myopia?
All of them. I mean, the MySight would be the main one for contacts. But we do a lot of Ortho K. We do some of the Mark Envy ones. We still do some off-label Biofinity multifocals. So it depends on the RX. Spec lenses, we use a range.
Ian, I was at BCLA, and if you're a follower of the show, you probably have heard me say this. There's this little Filipino lady, and she said that she is the most authority in the world on controlling myopia. I said, okay. I said, what's your number one advice for myopia control? She said, atropine. I said, okay. Next, she said, Ortho K. I said, oh, wow. Okay, cool. And then I said, the lens, Essilor, Hoya, Ronstone. She said, HOP, HOPE. I said, oh, okay. That was interesting. And I just started to see this lens. It's the number one sold lens in China. So watch out for that. That's a HOP lens from this lady. I don't know, she said.
Got it.
But she was like, look, atropine for everyone now. I said, no, we don't do that.
Not yet. It's coming. It's
Do you
been
think
approved
so?
in the UK. So yeah. Well, they've just announced that it's kind of past its regulatory burden, so it should be coming online anytime in the next few months. Really,
is that something you would do in your clinic? Because Americans come, when American tourists they come, they ask, look, I need atropine for my child. I don't know. I have to go private.
Yeah. We'll add it into the mix of things. I don't think it's a magic bullet, but for a lot of people, it would be a better option than the current options. It'll be a good adjunct to some of the options where you're maybe getting resistance or it's not working as well as you'd hope, that sort of thing. So yeah, definite space for it.
that holistic approach makes me so happy in my heart that you could go to a place, have specialist clinics, and it's not just a refraction and ophthalmoscopy and you're out. Like, this is a really cared for, beautiful place. And you dispense too. You got a whole section just of dispensing too. So it's not just contact lenses, clinical excellence. You really looking at that whole picture. And that's unique, Ian. It's really unique. What other specialist clinics are you doing? Is that
We've got a vision therapy clinic, so sort of behavioural type stuff that's run by a
wow.
specialist there, visual stress. We've got a low vision clinic that runs now and again. It's not really a money spinner, that one, but it's a good service to do.
It
Specialist
helps.
contact lens fitting, so keratoconics, post-graft, that sort of stuff, cosmetic contact lenses, AMD clinics coming up, dry eye, what else is going on? I can't think of off
Do
the
you
top of
know
my head.
when I
Is that
know
them
that
all?
it's a good show? When I look at the time and the time has just disappeared. We have
Yeah.
literally no time left, and I'm really sad about that because this has been so fun. And I think anybody listening will think, wow, that's where I want to be. If you look at the gold standard and you work towards that, Ian, are you welcoming of a practitioner that happens to be in Scotland come and saying hello and popping
Oh
in,
yeah,
put their heads
100%. Come
in?
and see the practice. Yeah, yeah, come and say hello. Take you out for coffee. Take you out for lunch. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. So just connect with me. If you don't have my details, speak to Gary. He'll pass them on.
It'll be in the show
Very
notes.
happy to, very happy to share knowledge and encourage others. There's plenty room for everybody to really push forward in optometry. So I'm not one of these guys that wants to pull up the trapdoor behind me. I've been privileged to get to my position
Mhm.
through people that have helped me, my dad, my family, whatever else, and guys like you, Gary, that have been inspirational in my journey. And I very much want to be a part of that for other people. So come and speak to me.
You inspire me.
No, you inspire me,
I'm
Gary.
not a
I love you
detail guy.
more.
I'm not a detail guy. I look at the big picture and I need a team around me that have the detail. I think that you are quite unusual for a clinician that you got the detail, you look at the big picture. It's exceptional. It's exceptional where you are in your skills. You're a great leader. And I think optometry have recognized you for that, and I wanted to recognize you for that, and anybody watching, check out Ian. He's very cool. Should we wrap up? We'll wrap up the pod because today's your very special day, and I hope you
That
jump into some inspiring work when you lock the door. What do you see the next couple of years of future for optics happening? Because we can't deny there's a war. We can't deny that probably patients will instead of coming back every year, they might come back every year and a half unless they're on a direct debit. How can you see the landscape in the next couple of years? That's a tricky question, but
Yeah,
do you
it's a
see?
tricky question with like 30 seconds. I wouldn't use the word war. It's not the way I would like to think about it, but it should drive, particularly independent optometry, in a different direction.
Yeah,
What's happening with AI and the multiples and sort of general stuff and the kind of retail in general, you've got to move away from that. You cannot get caught up with guys like Qubits and Iola and all these kind of guys, Jimmy Fairley, all doing their kind of fixed pricing stuff, being really present online. You've got to find ways of getting away from those guys. You've got to find ways of getting away from what the multiples are doing because we can't do it as well as they can at their scale. You've got to find some ways of getting away. So I would just be looking at what everybody else is doing, turning the other direction and going that way as fast and as hard as I can.
that's something we both agree in marketing. They say if everyone goes left, I've got without breaking the place. When if everyone's going left, you must go right.
I
Don't
like it.
just don't be another practice on the high street doing the same stuff. There's Dr. Noon, if you've heard of this technology, unbelievable. From a fundus photography, it tells you if you're going to have a heart attack within a 97% accuracy. That's coming down the line. It doesn't cost very much. We've figured out a solution to color deficiency. Go to some meetings, some boring meetings. You never know what you'll uncover. If you think about Steve Jobs, he walked past a lecture. He's looked at this little thing called a mouse. He thought, I'm going to connect that together with something else. And Ian, keep going. You're an inspiration to our whole industry. I really appreciate all your time today. And you go and you got a favorite day. I used to love my day off where I could plan. So I hope your day goes according to plan.
It's not a day off, Gary. Not a day
Not a
off.
day
I'm
off.
working from home. Don't call it a day off.
You're right. You're right. It is the grind, but it's just, you know,
All
when
right.
you're under pressure, apparently, when you're under pressure and you're stressed, it turns off your creativity. You do need creativity for today. So enjoy your
Thank you.
working day off creativity thing.
Great to
So
be here. Thanks, Gary. Thanks.
we call that a pod. We're done.
Call that day.
Over and out.